Who would be the best to play the Fantastic Four? Let's find out. Fantastic Four is a franchise that has been abused and misused over the years, missing the mark of the standards set by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby's, fantastic run from the 60s and 70s, instead catering to whatever seemed popular about 3 years prior to each film's release. Now that the Marvel Cinematic Universe is confirmed to be heading towards the famous Secret Wars run, which unlike the Lee and Kirby run of Fantastic Four that I mentioned, is a line of comics that I have yet to read through, but I've heard the team plays a significant role in, it's essential that the MCU gets it right this time. So far, everything building towards that seems to be going pretty smoothly. The director they chose seems to have a firm idea of how to pull off a retro franchise like the Fantastic Four. The stories seem to be in a reasonable order to build up to their appearance, and as far as living up to the MCU's reputation for stellar productions with dazzling effects.
I have a serious conflict of interest. This man tried to kill my cousin, Bruce.
See me next week. Aside from that though, the main thing they have yet to unveil, and hopefully have not already figured out and already cast a certain cameo from Doctor Strange 2 that clearly didn't want to be in that and was completely confused as to why he was even there, is the cast of actors. Which, to be honest, hasn't exactly been the worst factor of the previous movies either. In fact, reading through Fantastic Four, I kept thinking that Chris Evans would be perfect for the actor of Johnny Storm, but oh wait, not only did they already cast him as Captain America, they already cast him as Johnny in the Tim Story movies. Ian Gruffett as Mr. Fantastic and Kate Mara as Sue Storm weren't bad choices either. The main problem with the previous movies has been direction and screenwriting, so hopefully going through Marvel Studios will resolve those issues. But we still need a fresh new cast for these roles. So, join me today as we go through who could and should play the Fantastic Four. First up is Dr. Reed Richards, aka Mr. Fantastic, a professional scientist who leads the group with both tact and kind of an awkward charisma. He's always the one giving the team direction and typically has the most brilliant mind of the four. Hell, Doctor Strange 2 already dubbed him as the smartest man in the universe. For this role, we'll need someone who can pull off both the scientist persona and the charm and charisma of the character. And seeing as how the CW has went ahead and canned the Arrowverse, I figured Brandon Routh could give the biggest middle finger back to his old boss by joining up with Marvel Studios. What's that? He already left the show 2 seasons ago? Even more reason. Either way, Routh is a perfect blend of charming and nerdy, being able to make technobabble sound alluring.
Well, they aren't lasers. That'd be ridiculous. They're compressed hard light beams.
Also, he's just about the right age for the role. Not so old that someone like Sue wouldn't find him attractive, but also not looking like a kindergartner at a science fair, like frickin' Miles Teller. Call it a stretch, but I think it could work. Speaking of Sue Storm, aka the Invisible Woman, I was racking my head for a while trying to determine a casting choice that was unique to my taste. At first I thought about Margot Robbie, but apart from DC probably having a hissy fit with her doing that while pretty much having her locked in as Harley Quinn, she has a slight attitude in her persona. That's not to say Sue doesn't have her rowdy moments, but for the most part she's the compassionate motherly figure that keeps everyone together. And as much as I try not to base these spec videos on the most popular opinions, I have to agree with the common casting that Emily Blunt would be the perfect choice for a motherly figure. For one thing, she's already proven herself capable of that role with the Quiet Place movies, which perfectly depicts her capability of compassion towards those she wishes to protect and fury towards those that threaten them, something that Jessica Alba just didn't have the chops for. Blunt can be tough when she wants to be, and tender when she wants to be, plus, much like Ralph, she would make a believable scientist. I don't know, her chops for the role are pretty transparent to me. The next one I'd like to talk about will probably get some rocky feedback. But one thing I realized about Ben Grimm, aka The Thing, is that if we decided to skip over the team's origin story, which they really should, as that was just padding time in the previous movies, we wouldn't need to see him in human form. So really, all we would need is a voiceover. And even though it'll seem weird to some at first, I think Jonathan Banks, known primarily as Mike from Breaking Bad, would nail this role. The Thing always came off to me as begrudging, always regretting his choices and what it's made him. How did that not sound exactly like Mike? He might need his voice deepened a little bit, but it's not like that's never been done before. Again, if they decided to do a flashback to the origin story, that might require alternate casting, but heck, anyone can play that. For the present time thing though, Jonathan Banks would clobber this role. But easily the hardest one to cast was Johnny Storm, aka the Human Torch, mostly because, as I mentioned, the perfect casting was already in the Tim Story movies. I swear, every time I read the Fantastic Four, I can't help but read Johnny's lines in Chris Evans' voice. Look at him, he looks exactly like Captain America. On the flip side of that, they didn't exactly get his personality right in that movie. Johnny was witty and wisecracking, sure, but the only person that he was really a jerk towards was Ben. The rest of the time he was mostly playful, but also knew when to get stuff done, whereas the Chris Evans version did nothing but waste time. Then again, so did everyone else, but I digress. I've been racking my head on this, but one actor that could pull this role off that hasn't really had an appearance in the MCU is Ryan Gosling. This would be an interesting casting choice, as he could take the role in a direction where he does try, certainly harder than The Thing, to make the best of this role, but that he could also be on the edge of exploding, which for someone who could set himself on fire is no bueno. I'm not sure if an actor like him would agree to be in an MCU film, but if he did, it would definitely be a hot role for him. The last one I want to talk about, even though he absolutely positively should not be the main villain of any Fantastic Four movie, is Doctor Doom. He's supposedly the main baddie in Secret Wars, so they'll have to cast him eventually, and since the other Fantastic Four movies have carried this role, yeah, let's talk about him. Julian McMahon in the Tim Story movies mostly portrayed him as a slimy, evil guy, which is really only 1/3 of his personality, if even that. I mean, he is evil, duh, it's in his name, but he's also insane and, much like Dr. Richards, brilliant. And one actor that I feel could encompass all three of these aspects is Michael Fassbender. Again, kind of unlikely that the guy who mostly appears in art house films and just got done wrapping up a long, seemingly endless line of X-Men movies would take a role like this, but if he did, he would be amazing in this. He's the perfect combination of brilliant and despicable while also teetering on the edge of insanity. But again, don't make him the main focus of the movie, make him the main baddie in Secret Wars. Make him the Thanos of the era, build him up, but don't dispense him entirely on an individual Fantastic Four movie. Do all that, and Fassbender would be perfect for the role. And those are my casting choices for the Fantastic Four. Like I said, it's essential that they get this right this time, as their inevitable build-up to Secret Wars, from what I gathered, hinges on this being pulled off effectively. But with charming, emotional, and well-rounded leads to go along with the inevitable polished script, great direction, and lack of Doctor Doom, I feel it can be accomplished. But, as always, let me know down in the comments below who you think would be the best casting for the Fantastic Four, and if you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that like button, as well as that subscribe button, as I have fresh takes like this on my channel every Friday, as well as quick reviews on all the best new releases, and be sure to follow my Twitter account as well, as I have fresh takes on there that don't quite flesh themselves out to full-fledged videos. I'm Sam Waters, and I'll see you next week.